So Sam Williams is going to be out for the rest of the season. He got injured during a special teams drill. He tore his ACL and his MCL. Not good news at all. Not good news. This is not what you want to hear coming out of training camp. Okay. Losing Sam Williams, that's going to be big for this team. They cannot address this by going after a UFL player. They have to go out there and sign an actual defensive end who has experience in the NFL. Because when you look at it like this and say, okay, from last season, they've now lost 3 defensive ends from their roster. That was their depth last season. Now, I understand you drafted Marshawn Kneeland, which thank God they did, because I wouldn't even want to see what this room would look like without him in this defensive end room. But they need to be smart. They need to go out and sign an actual defensive end with experience, because if they don't, that's going to be very bad for this room. And not only that, you're looking to play Micah Parsons more off the ball. And if you want to do that, you're going to have more depth at defensive end. So the Cowboys need to be smart and address this right away. Don't beat around the bush and allow other teams to grab a guy that you are interested in grabbing. This is a injury that is not good. Sam Williams was a guy who was expected to be a breakout player. And now you have to look at this defensive end room and say, man, this is a very, very thin room at the current moment. And there's just not much depth that they can really rely upon if another guy in this defensive end room goes down. So they need to address this right away and be smart about it. Okay. I mean, seriously, they need to be smart about the way they address this, because look, here's the thing. I'm all for using Micah Parsons more as a chess piece on this defense. I think you get the best out of him when you do that. You did that his rookie season under Dan Quinn. And Micah Parsons that year was arguably a top 3 defensive player in football. I would even argue he was the best defensive player in football that year. That's how high of a level he played at that year. And you saw a lot of the things that I think Mike Zimmer wants to do with him this year. And I'm all for doing that. But you have to make sure you're good on the edges. And right now, if the starting lineup is going to be Parsons and Lawrence on the edge, which I do think Parsons is still going to play on the edge a lot. And if you want to use him more as a linebacker, then your defensive ends are DeMarcus Lawrence and Marshawn Kneeland. But who's behind those guys, right? Viliami Fehoko? I mean, he's not proven anything. He is a unproven player. He didn't play at all last season. To me, that's, Viliami Fehoko is a step above adding a UFL player, which I think Cowboys might address this position like this, because it seems like those are the only free agents they're interested in adding. No, you need to go out there. There's a few guys out there. There's Carl Lawson, who already tweeted out a star emoji. He's probably interested in joining this team. Yannick Ngakoue is another guy that the Cowboys need to consider. Shaq Lawson is another guy. There's defensive ends out there that are they like the best? Are they top of the league at what they do? No. But this late in free agency, this is what you're going to get. And these aren't bad options as well. I would go ahead and sign 2 of them. I would go sign 2 of them. Because if your whole thing is, hey, let's move Mike around the formation, you need to have depth at defensive end. And don't get it twisted. Like, remember, guys, DeMarcus Lawrence was healthy last year. He's dealt with some injury problems over the past few seasons as well. So that's something that you need to take into consideration as well. So this room right now, I think, has gotten worse with the loss of Sam Williams. I mean, that's obvious to say, but I think it's much more of an impact than people may want to realize. This was a guy that I thought was going to have a breakout season. You look at this guy and he looks like a defensive end. And under Mike Zimmer, a guy who's going to, I feel like, instill discipline in him, which is what he really needed to become that player that we wanted him to be. Yeah, it's a big loss because of what I thought he was going to be this year, which was a defensive end that we could look at and say, hey, we have a real player on our hands. This isn't just any average defensive end. This is a real player. So now they're going to have to ask Marshawn Kneeland to step up and play some big reps for this team. And I will praise the Cowboys for this when it comes to drafting Marshawn Kneeland. I wasn't all on board of drafting a defensive end. Hindsight is 2020, and the Cowboys are very smart for drafting a defensive end right now. They are. They are very smart for drafting a defensive end in the second round last year because you see that now. Hey, Sam Williams is down. It stinks. I don't like it at all. It's going to hurt this football team. But it's not the end of the world because you have Marshawn Nealon there. And because apparently Marshawn Nealon is making noise in training camp. And he's a guy that could potentially take a starting role on this team. As a matter of fact, if Marshawn Nealon shows out and proves that he could be a starting defensive end, man, the possibilities are endless with what you could do with Micah Parsons. You can play him more as an off-ball linebacker. But Nealon has to prove that he could be a legitimate defensive end. And there were talks about, hey, maybe Viliami Fehoko could be trade bait to go get a John Ridgeway from Washington. I think that's out of the door right now, potentially, because I think the Cowboys are going to look at him and say, hey, we need you to step up, man. We need you to play big reps for this team. Now, I wouldn't do it like that. I would just go out there and sign outside help. It's completely fine to do that. I don't know why the Cowboys act like it's not fine to go out there and sign outside help. Every other team in the NFL does it. I don't know why they don't do it. But yeah, Sam Williams going down, it's a tough loss, and absolutely prayers up to Sam Williams. I'm wishing him a speedy recovery, and I'm wishing him the best in his recovery.